Hi, everybody. Allie Duzette here with baby Danielle, who just got up from a nap. Hello, you sweet child. Um, okay, this morning. So, my scripture study this year is in the Old Testament. And not every morning, I'll be real with you. Some mornings it does fall through the cracks, but most mornings we read from the scriptures as a family. And this morning I pulled out the scriptures and I opened them up to where I thought we were. And I started reading it and I thought, oh no, this is the same place that I read last time. So why do I feel like this is the right thing? But the last time I read it, I thought I need to make a YouTube video about this. Everyone needs to know about this very cool thing. But I didn't make a video that day. So I feel like today's the day I have to make the video about it. Okay. We are in Genesis 13. Okay. And so what happens in Genesis 13, this is the little tiny summary at the top of the page. It says, Abram returns from Egypt. He and Lot, his nephew, right, part. The Lord will make Abram's seed as the dust of the earth in number. Abram settles in Hebron. Okay, so what happens is Abram and Lot are relatives. They're kind of living together or like adjacent, like they go around together. But here's the big problem. The big problem is that there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And remember, Abram is Abraham. He's going to become Abraham very soon. And so Abram and Lot decide they're going to split their land and then just each pick a side and stop trying to share because sharing is not working. Turns out when you have like X amount of cattle, you can't just share all the land. Like you have to divide it up and give people responsibility over the land that is theirs. And that's just how it has to be to avoid conflict, right? Boundaries, okay? This is about boundaries. Abram and Lot love each other, but they need some better boundaries in order to make their relationship work and continue. Okay. So they split this land in half. Okay. Now they got to decide who is going to take which half. And Abram says, so Abram, I love this. I'll just read it to you. Abram said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. So it's their herdmen, their guys in charge of their cattle, were kind of fighting over who would get the best part of land. So Abram says, is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. And if thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou wilt depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And so Lot lifted up his eyes. He looks at these two options and he sees the side that has more water, which is by Sodom, right? Which is, we all know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, maybe, I don't know. Do you know it? I don't know. But okay, so Lot chose him the side with all the water. Abram takes the less good side, right? And so they separated. But this is the part that I really wanted to read. This is verse 14. Okay, 14. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. Okay. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. Okay, so here's what's happening. Abram says, look up, look all the way around you, look in every direction. I'm going to give you everything you can see. I'm going to give it all to you for you and your children. Okay, so step one, look up, look around you, look at the gifts that I'm going to give you. Okay. Okay. Verses 16 and okay, 16, I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. So you're going to have countless descendants. But here's number 17. Okay. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and there built an altar unto the Lord. Okay, this is crazy. And now I've been talking to my kids about it for days. So I was like, I have to talk to you guys about it. Oh, my favorite people. Okay. I love this so much. And I read this to my kids. Now I've read it to them multiple times. I'm like, what is the lesson? And they still don't get it, which makes sense because my oldest is 10. So they're little. Fine. So fine. Eventually they'll get it. Lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. Arise, walk through the land and the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Okay, and then Abram gets up and walks. Okay, this is cool stuff. This is how to co-create the reality that we want with God. Okay, oh my gosh. Hi, baby. This, I just feel like this is the most beautiful recipe for it. First off, what is the first step that Abram does? First off, he sets some good boundaries with the people around him. Okay, he realizes that they all just can't be glommed on top of each other. Every person needs their own space. Okay, this is true physically. This is true spiritually. We all need energetic boundaries. We all need physical, literal land boundaries. Like, we all need a space that is for us, that we don't have to share, and also that we can't share. Like, here's the thing. Here's the big problem. It wasn't that, like, the problem was that there just was not enough land for both sets of cattle. There just wasn't enough. So there was going to be a fight about who got what. And it's kind of the same. I mean, like, in our own bodies, our own energy fields, like, your body is meant to sustain you. Okay. Energetically speaking, like, your life force is meant to sustain you. So if you've ever met like an energy vampire, right? Or these people that you hang out with them and they just suck you dry, that is a function of bad boundaries. And that's when their system is trying to leech off of your system for energy, for life force energy, and your system is allowing it. Okay, it's a two-way street, because you can solve this problem just by having better boundaries and saying, I don't have to share my body's life force with other people. I can show up for them, help them, serve them, love them, and not allow them to suck my life force dry. Okay, so step one, Abram creates these boundaries, right? But I love how he does it too. I love how he does it. He is willing to take the worst part, right? So here he says, look, I will take, we gotta have a boundary now. We're too big. Our cattle can't share the same space. Our people that we're responsible for are not getting along. So I want us to stay friends. So we're going to put in a new boundary. We're going to divide this land in half. Which half do you want? I'll take the other half. And Lot goes and takes the nice half, the watered half. And as I was reading that, I mean, for me, I can't imagine doing that. Like, for my own self, I would probably, if I was given the first choice, I think I would take the worst half, just because, I don't know, that's just like where my head is at. Like, and I think a lot of people are like this, like service oriented, like, are we being good or are we being martyry? I don't know, but that little part of us that's like, oh, I'll be the good one by taking less, right? So anyway, I thought it was interesting that Lot took the good one. He had the choice and he picked the good one. Okay, Abram did not have the choice. Abraham's choice was to accept the consequences of Lot's choice. Okay, Abram said, I will take what is left when you take the part that you want. And so Abram ends up with the yucko part, right? The part that is just not as good. And so then what happens? Okay, well, let's reevaluate that for just a moment, because how beautiful that he's willing to give this choice to Lot, and then that he is just willing to accept the worst part, right? Because he didn't have to do that. Guess what? I'm pretty sure Abram is older than Lot. I mean, but just because Lot is Abram's nephew, but like, guess what? I think that means absolutely nothing in Old Testament times, actually, because people lived so long and all that weird stuff. But had kids so late, it's possible that you would have an uncle that was, younger than you. I don't know, but I'm like, does it say? Anyways, definitely in terms of hierarchy, the uncle outranks the nephew, right? The uncle. So here, Abram doesn't have to give him this choice, but he does, and he takes the consequences. And I love that, setting a boundary, but then showing like ultimate love there. Because here's the thing, what if Abram had said, there's not enough room here for the two of us, I'm going to separate this in half, you take the crappy desert, I'm going to take the nice half. Like, obviously that would have kind of destroyed the family relationship, right? Like, this would have been really a tough thing for everybody involved emotionally. Not that this way wasn't tough, but it did maintain their relationship. When he said, we have to set a boundary, this is the new boundary, but you decide, like, what are you going to take? As soon as he made it Lot's choice and was okay with it, and Lot took the good one, this has preserved this family relationship. He was able to establish a boundary without causing a huge familial rift, right? So how masterful of him to do that. And I feel like it just shows a lot of faith, that he was willing to take the part that didn't have as much water. And I'm assuming that he just trusted, God is going to take care of this for me. God will make sure this works out for me. And sure enough, it does. But how does it do that? Okay, so God comes up to him and says, remember, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward, for all the land which you see, I will give it to you. I'll come back. And then God has Abram walk the land, okay, in the length and the breadth of it. For I will give it unto thee. This is the lesson that I really wanted my children to get. When God makes you a promise, like, to me, this is the recipe for co-creating your life with God, okay? You look at it, okay? We use our eyes, our physical eyes, or our spiritual eyes, right? Which our spiritual eye is in the pineal gland, which is right there between. It's called the third eye in many traditions, but it's right there in between. And the pineal gland is the part of your brain that is responsible for things like visions. I mean, like spiritual visions, which you experience through the vessel of your physical body in that part of your brain. So you're going to witness with your physical eyes and or your spiritual eyes. This is why we do vision boards. If people vision board, it's to help so that we can see with our physical eyes. But he's saying, use your eyes, lift up now thine eyes and look from where you stand. Okay. And I love that. He's like, don't even get up. Like, don't even, all you have to do is lift up your eyes. Later he says, arise, get up and walk. But for here, he just says, look around. Like, you don't even have to move, but I just want you to look all the way around. Look around at this land, because I'm going to give it to you, but I want you to see all of it. Okay. And so Abram does that, and he looks around and witnesses it with his eyes. And then God says, arise, walk through the land in the length and the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And so Abram does, and he walks through the land. And then after he's walked through the land, he builds an altar unto the Lord. Okay. And so this is the big lesson here to me. Okay. First, we need to be of one heart and one mind. Okay. And we don't get to control if other people are going to be of one heart and one mind with us, but we can control if we are of one heart and one mind within our own body. Okay. Which most people are not. I don't know if you've realized this. You probably have, because I would bet that you have probably at least one time in your life had a situation where you kind of wanted to do one thing and you kind of wanted to do another thing. And there was this conflict, what do I really want? What do I really think I should do? Okay. When we're in that space, it's time to set some boundaries and to make some decisions about what we are going to take, and this is true in our relationships as well. Like, if we have a really conflicting relationship, it's time to set some boundaries and be like Abram and say, okay, here's a new boundary. But I want to show you extra love about this boundary. And so, oh, hello. Oh, hello. You want to cough at me? So we set these new boundaries, and then we show extra love to the people around us, and maintain the positive relationships as well as we can. Hey, even while we're separating, either in a real life, like once upon a time I had people living in my house and we had to, invite them to leave the house because it was not working out. And, but it's true within our own hearts and minds as well, where, when you're having these internal conflicts, we have to draw a boundary and choose which half we're going to take. Okay. And so Abram made this choice. I'm going to choose this half. And yeah, it kind of looks worse, but this is the half. It looks worse to the outside, but I trust that this is the way that it's going to save the relationship. This is the way that's going to make things better spiritually, even though it might be worse physically for a time, right? So this is a great example of Abram making a massive decision about the land that his family is going to live on, and how are his cattle even going to survive on this land with much worse raw materials. He's choosing the spiritual good of the relationship over the material good of the land itself. Okay. Okay. So then what happens is, after the other option has gone and Lot is gone and he's taken that good half of land, that's when God says, look around and stand up and walk. And so for us, we get to make that boundary decision, get to be in one heart and one mind within our own bodies by choosing the part that might seem worse or harder, but we know that it's going to be better spiritually for us. So we make that choice, and then we get to share our desires with the Lord. Okay. Do you think Abram loved losing out on half of his land? Like, I'm guessing probably not. And it doesn't say that Abram asked God for this blessing. Maybe he didn't, or maybe he did. But ask and ye shall receive, right? Abram has now lost half his land. And then that is when God said, look up, look around, witness with your eyes this space, because I want to give it to you. Okay. So after we've become one heart and one mind within our own bodies, then we get to look around. Okay. We get to converse with the divine and ask for instruction on what we want to receive. What are the presents that God wants to give us? I really believe God loves giving presents. I just believe that 1,000%. And so what are the presents that God wants to give us? And then we get to what? Witness it with our eyes, having that vision board, right? Using the power of our visualization to imagine receiving the good thing. Then we get to arise and walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it. And I love that. I told my son this morning that years ago, so my husband and I got married. And we knew when we were getting married that we were eventually going to move back in with my parents and help take care of my brother until he died. He was severely disabled, very sick. And he was always, he has 6 months to live. He has a year to live. He has 2 weeks to live. It was like that since I was a baby. So I don't know, he had 2 weeks to live, for like a couple of years, after we got married. And so when it really got bad for him, though, we up and moved from Utah back to Maryland. And when we did that, we lived with my parents in their house, the house that I had lived in for some years before I went to college. And then I got pregnant with my oldest, and I really wanted a new house. And there was a house that was maybe going up for sale in the same neighborhood. And I told God, I want that house. And so what would I do? I felt like what I needed to do was walk past that house all the time. And so I'd go on a walk and walk to that house, and I would just look at it. I would lift up now mine eyes and look. And I was working in downtown DC, and I would come home and drive on back to our neighborhood, and I would go home to that house, and I'd park in the driveway, probably creepy, but I would just turn around because it was like at a little dead end. And so I would just kind of pretend like, oh, I'm in the wrong street. Like, I'll just like pull out, but I'd sit in that driveway for like 1 second and just be like, God, I really want this house. Okay, thank you. Thanks, God. Love you. Bye. And then turn around and leave that neighborhood. And eventually we did get that house, and it was like a crazy story. And but to me, that was just like the most beautiful example of receiving the land that I wanted and that I feel like God wanted to gift to me. Hey, talker. You want to talk and talk? Here, chew on a pen. Here you go. But that's, to me, that's the recipe. This is how we, like, you could call it manifesting. You can call it co-creating with the divine. What do you want? What do you want? Time to set some boundaries. Time to make sure you're of one heart and one mind within your own body and externally, to the extent that you can, knowing that you can't control other people, but you do your best to be wise, and you do it, in partnership with the divine, to set these boundaries and then act on them in a way that can preserve the relationships to the extent that they're supposed to be preserved. Then we lift up our eyes and we look all the way around and we mentally experience the blessings that the Lord has in store for us. Then what do we do next? We take action and we stand up and walk. And we walk the length and the breadth of our dreams until we have it. It's until our physical body is getting it. Like, like our physical body is understanding, like, yes, this is meant to be mine. This is meant to be mine. This is meant to be mine. We view with our eyes, our physical, our spiritual eyes, and then we take physical action as well. Okay. And of course, in the example of my house, there was more physical action than me just driving up into the driveway, right? Like, there was action that had to be taken. There's paperwork that has to be signed. There's stuff that has to be done with the bank. There's stuff that has to be done with the realtor. There's more action than just walking there and just taking a look. But these are part of the recipe. We go through it in our mind, and then we go through it in our body until we receive the blessing. So, okay, that was my little lecture today, but I just had to share it with you. So thank you guys for being here. Scriptures are great. Go and manifest. Go and ask the divine, what is it? Why did you need to watch this video today? Ask the divine, why did I watch this video today? What do I need to set boundaries on? Where do I need to commit to something 100% so that I am one in my heart and in my mind? What am I supposed to be looking at? What should I be visualizing with my physical eyes or with my spiritual eyes that you want to give me, God? And where do I need to walk? Arise and walk the land. Where do I need to go and take a walk to receive the things that I need in my life that you want to give me anyway? And last thing, in the end of that chapter, this is again, chapter 13 of Genesis, the very end, Abram picks up his tent, he walks the land, and eventually he builds an altar to the Lord. That's the end of that chapter. He goes and gives thanks. Okay. And I'm not even sure that he has received this land yet. He may or may not have received the land at that time, but even so, I kind of feel like probably he didn't receive it yet, because all it says is, I will give thee this land. And guess what? Abram builds an altar and gives thanks anyway. So at the very end of this process, how are we going to build our own altar? What sacrifice will we give up as a thank you to the Lord for giving us the desires of our hearts? And what kind of thank you do we give to the Lord for sometimes even giving us the desires of our hearts before we even ask? Like in this story, Abram he's not recorded to have asked first, but God came through and said, this is the gift that you need. I'm giving it to you. And Abram builds that altar at the end and offers, it doesn't say he offers a sacrifice, but why are you going to build an altar unless you do that? I think he did. And back then, the sacrifices were of actual animals. Now we know the sacrifices that we give are from within our own heart. What is it within your own heart that you are going to turn over as a thank you for the promise of this present that you need, whatever the present is that you need in your life? Okay. I hope that you have the best day of all. Praying blessings upon your head today. Bye, guys.